Ewind adware infests cloned apps in the Android ecosystem. Influence operations rise to prominence amid increased Russian and Islamist activity against Western targets. An accused Russian traitor makes a jailhouse denunciation of Russia's coziness with cyber organized crime. Finspy is found distributed via a word 0 day. And suppose you're doing time in the big house. How do you stay connected? We'd like to thank our sponsor, Palo Alto Networks. You can visit them at go.paloaltonetworks.com/secureclouds. With the adoption of software-as-a-service applications, data now lives beyond the traditional network perimeter, exposing your organization to more malware and threats. Palo Alto Networks helps your organization achieve complete SaaS protection with detailed SaaS visibility and granular control, data governance, automated risk remediation, and malware prevention. Palo Alto Networks has the broadest, most comprehensive cybersecurity for all cloud and software-as-a-service environments. They know that secure clouds are happy clouds. Find out how to secure yours at go.paloaltonetworks.com/secureclouds. And we thank Palo Alto Networks for sponsoring our show. Major funding for the CyberWire podcast is provided by Cylance. I'm Dave Bittner in Baltimore with your CyberWire summary for Thursday, April 13th, 2017. Palo Alto Networks researchers warn that an aggressive strain of Ewind adware is afflicting Android users. As much Trojan as conventional adware, Ewind clones popular apps, installs malicious code, and inserts them into third-party stores. Some of the noteworthy apps so cloned include Grand Theft Auto Vice City, AVG Cleaner, Minecraft Pocket Edition, Avast ransomware removal, and Opera Mobile. This is one more reason, should anyone still need another, to restrict your app purchases to authorized and reputable stores, in this case, Google Play. Those two can be and have been wrangled into hosting malicious apps, but on the whole, they're a far safer bet than the freelancing alternatives. If you were wondering about the emergency Siren hack in Dallas over the weekend, it turns out that it wasn't a network intrusion at all. Dallas public safety authorities are understandably tight-lipped, but they're saying the sirens were turned on by a spoofed RF signal. Exactly how, they're not saying, but it's worth noting that warning sirens are typically controlled by tone combinations received over UHF radio. In industry news, the Mach 37 Cyber Accelerator has announced its new class of startups. They include Automated DL, Broadbridge Networks, Ekran Systems, NeoEid, Secure Home, and Trovalone. Good luck to all of them. Operational technology, or OT, refers to the use of computers to control things in the real world, things like power plant control systems or the switching systems in a railroad. Fred Wilmot is CEO and CTO at PacketSled, and he warns that the ongoing convergence of OT, IT, and IoT requires special attention from security professionals.
Well, I think there's a couple of dimensions here where IT and OT are converging in what we refer to as IoT, and the relation of the technologies being put out into the environments today, and the wearables and things as devices in your home, your Alexa, your Siri. All of these components all become operational technology at some level, but we really refer to those as IoT devices. And the OT devices, what we know is operational technology that runs for things like planes, trains, automobiles, are really also entering in the same foray with a slightly different challenge. But nonetheless, they are converging in the sense that the requirement for us to protect our intellectual property, or the keys of the kingdom, are all sort of the weakest link being the supportable problem space that we're trying to avoid or mitigate the risk of. And so that's where those pieces do seem to come together. One of the challenges we've had historically in the security industry is collaboration and consensus. And the first thing that I advocate for here in this particular case is, with your vendors and with your organization, spend time going to the source of where this conflict begins. And that is, if you haven't been out to an airplane and that's what you're looking to defend, go to an airplane, sit down, figure out all the potential parameters around that, and then characterize that in a way that your vendors can understand and operate on and action, and look to help influence legislation that's associated with that. That's obviously for very large organizations. For smaller organizations, you've got to look at, first of all, getting an understanding of what that problem looks like. I think, getting visibility on what happens on those OT environments where you can't put, endpoint deterrent technology, things like that, is critical. It's also, again, looking at responsible evaluation and disclosure with your partners in the business that manufacture your technology, holding them accountable and allowing them to have the room to navigate to continue to make you successful, and transparency around that. And I would say the final piece is, so we've done some iteration around the technology itself and how it works and the process of evaluating, continue to iterate on it. Now we also I've implemented that. And how do I test and validate the assertions I'm making around whether or not that is or is not safe and secure, or that is or is not something that will affect a larger risk profile for the business? You've got to tabletop those exercises. You've got to spend time looking at causing some of the scenarios you expect to have happen with purple teams that do a little bit of assessment and testing work and allow your operational team to try to find and or mitigate what's happening on their infrastructure. And it's a cyclical process that everyone needs to continue to go through. As we all know, this is no different than what we've done in IT for years. But the types of attacks that OT environments are vulnerable to are much lower quality and or complexity. So we want to make sure we can, capably understand what the implications are when they do happen and take action as a result of them.
That's Fred Wilmot from PacketSled. Russo-U.S. relations continue to be chilly, with information operations believed to continue unabated even amid high-level talks between Washington and Moscow. The new Information Operations Center being established in Helsinki, Finland, is a sign of the more tough-minded allies' resolution to do something about Russian influence operations against elections. That concern isn't confined to the partners who are establishing the Helsinki Center either. German authorities advocate widespread control over online media to combat fake news, and Berlin hopes that all of Europe will follow. Essentially, the plan is to impose heavy fines on social media providers in particular who failed to satisfactorily police hate speech. Addressed as much to concerns about terrorism as they are to influence operations, the German plans are being met with a predictable degree of skepticism. There are few signs that policy or technical fixes offer much prospect of short-term success. Ruslan Stoyanov, the Kaspersky researcher and former FSB officer, whom Russian authorities have charged with treason, has condemned the Russian state practice of co-opting and using cybercriminals. In a statement he dictated to his lawyers, who released it to independent television station Dozd, Stoyanov says patriot thieves are given immunity from prosecution to attack foreign targets, and this practice is unsustainable. The protected hoods will eventually unleash a wave of crime against Russia itself. Observers have long commented on close ties between Russian security services and organized crime. The biter may have already been bitten with one of the Word 0 days patched this week. According to FireEye, CVE 2017-0199 appears to have been exploited to deliver Finspy to Russian-speaking targets. Finspy is a controversial lawful intercept product developed by the Gamma Group. The vector was a weaponized document, a military manual from the Ukrainian pro-Moscow separatist group, Donetsk People's Republic. The same vulnerability has also been used to spread the more obviously criminal LatenBot and Turdot payloads. American criminals enjoy a rather different relationship with law enforcement. Suppose you've done something kind of bad in, for example, Athens, Ohio, to pick a town at random. Maybe a wildcat party gets too frisky and, well, Your Honor, just one thing just led to another, and before you know it, you're invited to a medium security sabbatical in Marion, courtesy of the governor. Naturally, you want your internet. I mean, who wouldn't? Well, here's some news you can use from Motherboard, which has looked into exactly how some gentlemen of fortune stayed connected in the joint. Essentially, they pieced the machines together bit by bit, using parts they pilfered from a computer disassembly program they'd been working in, as an alternative, we suppose, to lifting weights and working in the license plate shop. We'll let one of the inmates speak for himself. As Motherboard quotes his statement to investigators, it went something like this, quote, "I imagine the drive with a Cronus. All you got to do is take that drive, plug it into any computer, and it will boot up. I took a network card out of another computer and put it in the illegal computer, plugged it into the inmate switch, remote desktop into the computer, and then bam, I'm on the network." So there you go. Bam. Time to take a moment to tell you about our sponsor, Control Risks. For 41 years across over 130 countries, Control Risks has partnered with the world's leading companies to help them succeed in complex physical, political, and virtual risk environments. They've been with their clients as risks have evolved, from kidnapping in the jungles of Colombia to extortion by cyber attack. In an increasingly interconnected world, cyber risks are everywhere you operate. Control Risks has a comprehensive view of cybersecurity as a business risk within a context of geopolitical, reputational, regulatory, and competitive complexity. And thanks to their unique heritage, they provide clarity and actionable guidance that only decades of risk experience can bring. Control Risks brings order to chaos. Let them show you what over 40 years in the risk business has taught them. Find out more at controlrisks.com/cyberwire. That's controlrisks.com/cyberwire. And we thank Control Risks for sponsoring our show. And joining me once again is David Dufour. He's the Senior Director of Engineering and Cybersecurity at Webroot. David, welcome back. Tax season is upon us. You had some points you wanted to make about being wary of phishing emails and sort of how to know what to expect, what's normal from the IRS.
Well, David, it's great to be back. And yes, with tax season upon us, we're seeing a huge growth in the phishing scams around the IRS and taxes in general. The IRS is never going to send you an email or call you. That's not something cybersecurity related. They just don't do it. They're going to send you something via paper, mail. That's how they communicate. So if you're getting emails saying that you owe money or getting phone calls saying that the IRS is going to put a lien on you, you probably want to just ignore those because you're going to get something in the mail from the IRS directly.
Yeah, I have a friend who recently went through this where someone was absolutely just pestering them, hammering them with, fake calls from the IRS and just really ratcheting up the threats that, if they didn't pay right now, the world was going to end.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And again, you're going to want to block those, probably report them. So also, you need to be very aware that third parties may try to contact you as well, saying that they've actually analyzed your taxes and you're going to get this amount returned, or they need to speak with you about your tax situation because they're working with the IRS. The IRS is not going to work with third parties. And this is, again, isn't necessarily cybersecurity related. It's more scam focused. And so just be aware, the IRS will contact you through good old U.S. mail. They're not going to email you. They're not going to call you, and they're not going to use third-party agents to communicate with you.
So the IRS is old school when it comes to communication.
They are.
All right. David Dufour, thanks again for joining us. And that's the CyberWire. Thanks to all of our sponsors who make the CyberWire possible, especially to our sustaining sponsor, Cylance. To find out how Cylance uses artificial intelligence to help protect you, visit cylance.com. A quick reminder that we're partnering with our friends at Recorded Future to produce a new podcast focused on threat intelligence. It comes out once a week, and we hope you'll check it out and help spread the word. You can search on iTunes for Recorded Future or visit recordedfuture.com/podcast. The CyberWire podcast is produced by Pratt Street Media. Our editor is John Petrick. Social media editor is Jennifer Iben. Technical editor is Chris Russell. Executive editor is Peter Kilpie. And I'm Dave Bittner. Thanks for listening.